Jungkook's slim fingers hovered nervously over the keyboard of his phone as he reread the message yet again. "You're so beautiful, Jungkook. I wish I could see you tonight." His heart raced, not from excitement, but from sheer panic. It wasn't his fault, he reasoned. He hadn't asked for these messages, nor had he encouraged them. But would Taehyung see it the same way? Jungkook glanced at the living room where Taehyung sat, exuding the cold, untouchable aura he was known for. Dressed in a tailored black suit, his dark eyes scanned through documents with a sharp intensity. His Mafia empire always demanded his attention, and yet, Jungkook knew Taehyung never missed a single detail about him. The phone in his hand buzzed again, and Jungkook flinched. "I can't stop thinking about you." Before he could delete the message, a shadow loomed over him. "Who can't stop thinking about you?" Taehyung's voice was calm, almost too calm, the kind of calm that sent shivers down Jungkook's spine. He quickly locked his phone and hid it behind him, mustering a nervous smile. "It's nothing. Just a spam message." Taehyung raised an eyebrow, tilting his head slightly as he crossed his arms. "Spam messages don't make you look like you've been caught committing a crime, Jungkook." "I'm not," Jungkook protested, but the words died in his throat when Taehyung reached out, plucking the phone from his trembling hands with an ease that reminded him just how much power the older man wielded. The room fell silent as Taehyung unlocked the device with a swipe of his thumb. Jungkook's breath hitched when those sharp eyes scanned the screen. The air grew colder by the second. Taehyung's jaw clenched, his hand tightening around the phone as his lips curled into a sardonic smirk. "Beautiful, huh? And he wishes to see you tonight." His voice dripped with venom, yet his face remained eerily composed. "Taehyung, Jungkook started, but Taehyung's icy glare silenced him. "Tell me, sweetheart," Taehyung said, leaning closer until their faces were mere inches apart. "Do you enjoy entertaining other men while under my roof? Or does my protection and love no longer satisfy you?" Tears pricked Jungkook's eyes as he shook his head furiously. "No. It's not like that." "I didn't respond to him. I don't even know why he's sending me these." Taehyung chuckled darkly, straightening up as he placed the phone on the table. His gaze softened just slightly, but the steel in his voice remained. "I believe you, Jungkook. But that doesn't mean he gets to walk away unscathed for daring to text what's mine." Jungkook's breath caught. "Taehyung, please don't." Taehyung silenced him with a finger pressed gently to his lips. "Love. This isn't your burden to carry. I'll deal with him." Though his words were meant to reassure, Jungkook couldn't shake the foreboding chill they brought. That night, Jungkook sat alone in their massive bedroom, his heart heavy with worry. Taehyung had left hours ago, and the silence of the mansion was deafening. When the door finally opened, he jumped, relief flooding through him as Taehyung stepped inside. "Taehyung," Jungkook cried, rushing to his husband's side. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" Taehyung's lips curved into a small, almost tender smile as he cupped Jungkook's face. "It's taken care of," he said simply, brushing a tear from Jungkook's cheek. "But I said it's taken care of, sweetheart," Taehyung repeated, his voice firm yet laced with an uncharacteristic gentleness. "You don't need to worry about anyone coming between us again." Jungkook bit his lip, leaning into Taehyung's touch. "You didn't." Taehyung chuckled softly, pressing a Jungkook's forehead. "You know I'd do anything to protect you. No one else gets to call you beautiful, Jungkook. That's a privilege reserved for me." As much as Jungkook wanted to press further, the warmth of Taehyung's arms around him melted away his resistance. He knew his husband's world was dark, but he also knew that beneath the cold, ruthless exterior, Taehyung's heart beat solely for him. And as Taehyung held him close, Jungkook couldn't help but feel safe, despite the storm that raged silently in Taehyung's eyes. Jungkook woke the next morning to the faint smell of coffee and the soft rustling of papers. His eyes fluttered open to find Taehyung sitting by the window, impeccable dressed as always, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. He looked serene, almost too serene, as though last night's events hadn't happened at all. "Good morning, love," Taehyung greeted without looking up, his deep voice sending a shiver down Jungkook's spine. "Morning," Jungkook mumbled, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. He hesitated before asking, Did you sleep at all?" Taehyung glanced over, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I slept enough. I had things to take care of." Jungkook's stomach twisted. "Things?" Taehyung stood, crossing the room to sit beside him. He reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind Jungkook's ear, his touch gentle. "Nothing you need to concern yourself with." Jungkook frowned, frustration bubbling beneath his worry. "You can't keep saying that, Taehyung. I know it has to do with him." "What did you do?" Taehyung's expression hardened slightly, though his hand remained tender as it cupped Jungkook's cheek. "Do you trust me?" Jungkook hesitated. He did trust Taehyung, more than anyone, but the shadowy world his husband ruled sometimes felt like too much. I do. But, no buts," Taehyung interrupted, his tone soft but firm. "Trust me when I say he won't bother you again. That's all you need to know." Jungkook looked down, biting his lip. He wanted to argue, to demand answers, but the way Taehyung's thumb gently traced his cheek made his resolve crumble. "Okay," he whispered. "Good boy," Taehyung murmured, pressing a lingering Jungkook's forehead. Later that day, Jungkook tried to distract himself with chores and errands, but his mind kept wandering back to the mysterious man who'd sent him those messages, and what Taehyung had done to him. He found himself scrolling through his phone, his heart pounding when he noticed the messages were gone. Completely erased, as though they'd never existed. Looking for something, Taehyung's voice startled him, and he nearly dropped his phone. "Taehyung," Jungkook gasped, clutching the device to his chest. "You scared me." Taehyung leaned casually against the door frame, his piercing gaze locking onto Jungkook. "Were you expecting another message?" "No. Of course not," Jungkook stammered. Taehyung's smirk deepened as he sauntered over, his presence commanding. He plucked the phone from Jungkook's hands and set it aside, pulling him into his arms. "Good. Because you won't be hearing from him, or anyone else like him, ever again." Jungkook tilted his head up, his eyes wide with concern. "Taehyung, you didn't hurt him, did you?" Taehyung chuckled, a dark, rich sound that sent chills down Jungkook's spine. "Hurt him? No. I simply reminded him of his place." "And what is his place?" "Far, far away from you," Taehyung murmured, pressing a soft Jungkook's lips. But as the days passed, Jungkook couldn't shake the feeling that Taehyung wasn't telling him the whole truth. Strange things began happening, anonymous calls, shadowy figures lingering near their estate, whispers among Taehyung's men. One night, as Taehyung prepared to leave for yet another mysterious meeting, Jungkook grabbed his arm. "You're keeping something from me," he said, his voice trembling. "I deserve to know what's going on." Taehyung turned, his expression unreadable. It's better this way, Jungkook. Trust me. No, Jungkook snapped, surprising even himself. I can't keep living in the dark, Taehyung. If we're going to make this work, you have to let me in. For a moment, Taehyung simply stared at him, his dark eyes filled with a storm of emotions. Then, with a heavy sigh, he cupped Jungkook's face, his touch both tender and possessive. "All right, sweetheart," he said quietly. "But once you step into my world, there's no turning back." "Are you ready for that?" Jungkook swallowed hard, his heart pounding. "I'm ready." Taehyung's lips curved into a faint, almost dangerous smile. "Then hold on tight, love. You're about to see a side of me you've never seen before." Jungkook's heart raced as he sat in the passenger seat of Taehyung's sleek black car. The city's lights blurred outside the tinted windows, the hum of the engine the only sound between them. Taehyung hadn't said much since they left the house, his face unreadable as he focused on the road. Jungkook fidgeted with his fingers, nerves coiling tightly in his chest. "Where are we going?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "To show you the truth," Taehyung replied, his tone calm but firm. The car eventually pulled into the underground garage of an imposing building Jungkook didn't recognize. Taehyung stepped out first, rounding the car to open the door for him. "Stay close to me," Taehyung instructed, holding out his hand. Jungkook hesitated before slipping his smaller hand into Taehyung's. The older man's grip was strong, reassuring, and it grounded him as they entered the building. The elevator ride was silent, tension thick in the air. When the doors opened, Jungkook's breath hitched. A single chair sat in the center of a dimly lit room, and in it was the man who had sent the messages. His wrists were bound, his face pale and glistening with sweat. Taehyung's men flanked the walls, their expressions cold and unreadable. "Taehyung," Jungkook breathed, his knees weakening as realization hit him. The man looked up, his eyes widening when he saw Jungkook. "Jungkook, don't you dare speak his name," Taehyung interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. He let go of Jungkook's hand, stepping toward the man with a slow, predatory grace. "I warned you," Taehyung said, crouching to meet the man's terrified gaze. "I told you he's mine. Yet you thought you could disrespect me and him by sending those messages." "Didn't mean any harm," the man stammered, trembling. "No harm," Taehyung echoed, his tone laced with dark amusement. "You invaded what's mine. That's harm enough." Jungkook's breath quickened, his mind racing. "Taehyung, stop. Please," he pleaded, stepping closer. Taehyung turned to him, his eyes softening slightly. "Jungkook, I brought you here because you said you wanted to know the truth. This is my world. It's not pretty, but it's the reality of protecting what's mine." Jungkook shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "You don't have to do this. I don't want this." For a moment, Taehyung was silent. Then he sighed, standing and running a hand through his hair. He turned to his men. "Take him out of here. Make sure he disappears." Quietly, the man was dragged out of the room, his protests fading as the heavy door closed behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Taehyung stepped toward Jungkook, his expression unreadable. "I'll let him go for you, Jungkook. But understand this, no one crosses me. Not even for you." Jungkook stared at him, his emotions warring between fear, love, and something he couldn't name. "Taehyung, I don't want you to become this person for me." Taehyung cupped Jungkook's face, his thumb brushing away a tear. "Sweetheart, I've always been this person. But for you, I'll try to be better. Just don't ever doubt my love for you. Jungkook nodded slowly, his tears falling freely now. I love you too, Taehyung. But I need to feel safe, not just from others, but from the darkness you carry. Taehyung's gaze softened, and for the first time, Jungkook saw vulnerability in his husband's eyes. I'll give you that, Jungkook. I promise. As they drove home, the weight of the night hung heavy between them, but for the first time, Jungkook felt like they had taken a step toward understanding each other. Taehyung reached over, intertwining their fingers as he drove. No more secrets, he murmured, glancing at Jungkook. Jungkook smiled faintly, squeezing his hand. No more secrets, and for the first time in a long while, Jungkook felt like they were truly on the same path, a path that, while shadowed by darkness, was lit by the love they shared.